preaching house, and it was in the preaching house that Wesley would say, we'll let the Holy Spirit take it from there. Wesley wasn't worried about somehow us saving somebody. Let's get them to the preaching house, and we'll let the Holy Spirit take it from there. Because Wesley had this deep conviction that the Holy Spirit moves better in a group than individually. I mean, that's why we have, people say, well, the Methodists don't have altar calls. Yes, we do. It's called Holy Communion. The reason Wesley served Holy Communion every day, not only was it his tradition, but he believed that that was a convicting, he wrote it was a convicting element. It was our call to be closest to God. And if you could just get somebody to the preaching house, preach the word, serve communion. Communion was our altar call. It was where people would come down, and Wesley say the envelope between earth and heaven gets the thinnest. That was our altar call. That's why he served it every time. That's why, by the way, our altar, our communion is not open to everybody just to be nice. It was open to everybody because Wesley believed that was the biggest chance the Holy Spirit would move and convict somebody. So how could it not be open to everybody? See the difference? That's the Wesleyan way of evangelism. It isn't street evangelism. It is street relationships that lead people back to the preaching house, that allows the Holy Spirit to move in a bigger group and be convicted through Holy Communion that God is real. Are you with me? Now, the sad thing about this is most United Methodists do not even know this. Did you? We have bought into the reformist idea that if we don't somehow, we take the burden on ourselves to somehow we got to save them, somehow we got to convert them, somehow we got to tell, and then we just shrink from that and go, whoa, I'm not doing that. I don't know enough. I'm not a real enough Christian. I don't know my Bible. I don't even carry my Bible. Are you with me? And so we do nothing. So let's go back. What is it? Get their name, that leads to that moves to a moment that has you, and bring them back with you to the preaching house, and we'll let the Holy Spirit take it from there. So if that's the case, what do we got to do? And that's what's in the book. What do you need to teach your congregation? What do you need to teach yourself? What do you need to be doing to help us kind of enact the Wesleyan way of reaching people for Jesus Christ? So I'm going to change this. I keep saying that I haven't done it too. It's really missional evangelism. It's not mission versus evangelism, friends. We've done some huge mistake to Wesleyan theology and separated missions from evangelism. Over here is the evangelism team, and over here is the missions team. Wesley never did that. Wesley's great genius was it was both. They were tied together. It was missional evangelism. It works best together. Rather than we've done I think it's a heresy that we've separated, let's go do missions. Think about that in your church. Let's go do missions. Without evangelism. Most of us don't even have evangelism anymore. We just go do missions. We've got to put the two back together. Actually, I started to really learn this. I'd like to take credit. I figured this out, but Carol Meyer was an associate at Church of Shepherd, still is, I guess. And she led all of our mission stuff, and we were just doing the typical mission stuff. There goes the mission team, mostly to Mexico and other places, and build habitat houses. You all know what you do all sorts of collects. You know, Methodists, we collect stuff and give it away, but we don't actually talk to the people. We just did all kinds of stuff, but Carol had a great insight that when you go on a mission trip, there's two things you got to do. One was the task, and one was the mission. And most of the time we confuse the two. We did a fine job of building the house. We never got to know the family that moved in. We handed them the Bible. We did the ceremony. We did the perfunctory things. But 6 months later, we didn't. Are you with me? No. We didn't get to know the people. Which is the mission? Building the house or knowing the people? But if you examine what your church is doing, you'd think building a house was the mission. And that's which is the mission? Collecting canned goods? Or getting to actually know the people you give the canned goods to? And most of your churches and my churches never even meet the people. What was the process again? Get their name, which would require what? Meeting the people. Friends, the two things you got to work at your church, if you're going to make this work, is you have 2 mission fields. Every church has 2 mission fields. And if you neglect one or the other, your church is going to continue to decline. And when you're in an established church, it's a mix of these two. The first mission field you have to deal with are those you already know. That's the folks that are already gathered in the room. Everyone, how many pastors in the room? Raise your hand, pastors. When you arrive someplace, you have a mission field that's inside the building. If you don't help them figure this out, they will help you figure out a new zip code. They won't let you do what needs to be done. They will get you somewhere else. And if you don't understand that you have to help the congregation along you have inherited. You have to. Now, if you spend all your time there, which they would want you to, by the way, every church I've ever gone to, I've been doing this for 37 years, it said, we don't mind if you go out there and get new people after you've taken care of us. Sure. Problem with that is that's 110% of my time if I let it. And by the way, they will reward you for that, and you will be beloved. But again, your church will continue to decline. But if you ignore it and don't understand, you have to bring your congregation along. You have to help your congregation get deeper and move along with you. They will throw you out with the bathwater, pastors. And laity, you got to understand it's a mix of both. If you demand that your pastor spends all of his or her time taking care of you, your church, you're going to feel good, but your church is going to continue to die. And you're going to ignore the other one. Over here on this end, those you already know, you got to help. What do you got to do with the folks we already know? Help them grow deeper in love with God. Now, when I first put this up, I don't know even how to say it. I thought, well, okay, aren't most people in church in love with God? I've had people ask me that. And my experience is, no, they're not. They're in love with the church. Nothing wrong with that, but they love their church. In fact, most people I find haven't opened the Bible lately, but they love their church. I could remove every Bible from most churches and nobody'd notice, but if I moved a picture their grandmother put on the wall, you would know instantaneously. I've come to understand the hard way, no, we need to help our folks fall back in love with God and not so much in love with their building and their church. I think that must be the United Methodist Church. I think we've forgotten our first love, which is Jesus Christ. Friends, we've gotten confused that the church is a destination, and it is not. It's simply a connector from where people were to Jesus Christ. It's not the destination. It's the connector. Number 2 mission field is those you don't know yet. And if you're not careful, you'll have no time left over to do this. And with this group, the folks you don't know yet in your mission field, so the first thing your group's got to decide, what is your mission field? Most churches have no idea. So what is the area you're going to target and work? For most of you, it's going to be your local school district. It's going to be, if it's a big school district, if it's a suburban church or city church, it's going to be around the local elementary school that's nearest to your church. If you don't know what that boundary is, every elementary school has a boundary because that's their bus routes. That's the walk route. And that mostly is, or 2 elementary schools, that's your mission field. And that doesn't mean everybody you have lives in the mission field. In fact, you'll be lucky if the folks that attend your building actually live in your mission field. If you're not careful, they save the building in the mission field, but the church moves somewhere else. Because the church is, what did you learn in kindergarten? The church is the people. Most of us made a commitment to keep our buildings where they are. Yeah, you kept the building, but the church moved. And we're all driving back to our fortresses and the communities we used to live in. And friends, that will not grow a church. You got to live in the mission field you're in, or you got to live with the mission field you're in. So figure out what your mission field is. Do people come outside of your mission field to your church? Sure. Do people live outside? Sure. But where you have limited time and resources, limited time and effort, where are you going to spend it? Spend it on your target. So if you don't know what that is, the first thing a church has to do is decide, where are we going to spend our time out in the mission field? And a lot of you, that's going to be taking traffic patterns and going, well, our mission field's bounded by 270 or Telegraph Road or Manchester Road, or are you thinking with me? It may not be a square. It's about traffic patterns and where people go and that kind of stuff. You need to know that, because that's where you need to focus your effort in field 2. And when you get out into that field, we got to reverse what we were trained. I was trained to help people believe first, then they would connect, and then they'd feel like they belong. Nobody does that anymore. The first thing people need to do is when they walk into your door at church, they're not worried about what you're believing and preaching, is, can I belong here? I don't mean membership. If you're still worrying about members, quit it. You don't need any more members. In fact, if I had a magic wand in the United Methodist Church, I'd do away with membership. It'd be gone. Membership denotes privilege, and we've taken that till its fullest. We need service from Jesus Christ. We need missionaries, not members. So what we need is folks who come in and go, wow, I think I could belong here. I feel at home here. I feel like this is where I could be. I love Matt Miosky's line, you got to pass the hangout test. I look in the room, and I'm looking at you all right now. I'm wondering, here's what I'm wondering. Could I hang out with you all? Or could I do life with you? Could I imagine myself growing old with this group? And if the answer is no, I can't imagine that, guess what? They're not coming back. It doesn't matter how good your music is, or your preaching, or your building, or how nice your stained glass windows, or you got whatever. Friends, if they can't look around the room and go, wow, this would be a neat group of people to hang out with, they're just not going to let you do it. And neither do you, by the way. We all do this hangout test. We walk into places and our brain starts figuring whether this is a place I could find life in. Yes? So they got to belong. They got to connect, then belong, and then believe. So the connect part is how you even going to connect with people you don't know. We'll get back to that. Does that make sense? Questions about this? Now, friends with an established church, are you going to spend 50-50 time here? No, the church won't let you. So probably in most of your churches, pastors and laity, if you're spending 75% of your energy over on the people we already know and 25% over here, my guess is you can grow your church. And that's probably about as good as you're going to do on time-wise and effort-wise, money-wise. You look at your budgets at your church, and I guarantee you they're 99% let's feed us. So just even a quarter, if you could get to pastors, you ought to be spending 10 hours a week over here with people you don't know. One of your days. Now, maybe it's not a straight day, but the equivalent of 10% of your time or 10 hours of your time. Laity, where's your 1 hour? We used to say spend 1 hour in worship and 1 hour in service. Well, that 1 hour in service needs to be trying to reach people you don't know.